Wake up, Rip City. Today on the show, he's been hosting Locked On Blazers since 2019. One of the best Blazers podcasts out there, if not the best. He's also the pass first point guard. Joining us today on the show, it's Mike Richman. Thank you for joining Wake Up, Rip City, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get right into it, Mike. We love your podcast. We listen to it. Listen to the one today. Today, talking about the Blazers coaching staff. Let's just get an update from you. What's kind of the latest going on with the Blazers coaching staff as they kind of finalize what's going on there?
Yeah, it looks like, they haven't officially announced the hires because that's kind of the nature of these things. They come out first in reports and then eventually the team gets around to it. But they've added Mike Williams, who's was assistant on Will Hardy's staff and worked for the Wizards organization. It sounds like he's going to be promoted to a front of the bench role in Portland. And they've added veteran Jay Triano back in the mix. He was on Terry Stotts' staff as his lead assistant for 4 seasons, beginning in Terry's first run at it when Terry and Damian Lillard and I guess like Myers Leonard came to town in 2012. But Triano was also the head coach in Toronto when Mike Inori first got his first assistant coaching gig. His first full season in Toronto, Jay Triano promoted, got to build out his coaching staff. And one of the people that he built the coaching staff out was Mike Inori. So it's a nice full circle moment. Now Nori, some almost 20 years later gets to hire Jay Triano and his first staff. So if nothing else, it's a fun little story.
So obviously there's been a lot of talk about the, just the personalities, the kind of clunkiness of the way the roster is built right now. Do you think that the coaching staff is going to help this situation at all? Or is there still, it just feels like, I feel like a lot of Blazer fans are waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like there has to be some kind of movement coming. Is the coaching staff improving this situation, or is that really not a factor at all?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly you hope it does. I think it's hard from the outside to say, like, this is a good coaching staff. You can, look that it checks the boxes, right? Jay Triano is a vet. He's coached, he's spent nearly 4 decades coaching basketball. He's been in the NBA as an assistant and various head coaching roles since 2002, right? He's spent over 2 decades, almost 25 straight years in the league. He's been around. Mike Inori's been around, right? Nate Bjorkgren, who it sounds like they're also retaining, is a relatively veteran head coach. Like they kind of check the boxes. They got some younger coaches with some player development upside. If you're just kind of like going through the sort of tick box of your preferences, yeah, they seem to hit those. But coaching is such an art. It's so much more art than science. So it's really hard to know from the outside, and particularly in July, how it's actually going to impact the team. So I do think it's, they've hired a very reasonable and perhaps even good coaching staff, but we will know much more when they start playing the games. But I am of the belief, and I think you guys maybe feel differently, and you can weigh in if you do, is like coaching is a smaller part of the equation than talent. Yeah. Talent wins. It's a talent league, particularly in the regular season. It's a talent league. It is sort of a meritocracy in the NBA. It is mostly a meritocracy in the NBA. So while coaching can help, the best teams are typically going to do well, and they'll kind of make the coaches along the way. See Luke Walton going 24-0 to begin that one season with the Warriors, and then proving himself to be probably not very good at coaching.
Let's talk about the talent, because I think when the Jaw trade happened, the initial reaction was like, first of all, was surprise, shock, all that stuff. But then the secondary reaction was, okay, there has to be another move coming. Now we're a couple weeks removed. I can't even remember how much time it's been since the Jaw trade actually happened. And has that feeling stuck with you, Mike? Is there still the feeling there's another move coming, or is that kind of gone away now, and are we kind of locked into this roster, at least maybe not locked in, but does it seem like this roster is going to stick for opening night?
I would be surprised if there's another big move. Certainly they'll they'll probably add another player. They need a 14th guy. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a minimum contract, just based on what the free agent class looks like. I don't think, not too many teams in the league across this entire summer have used a bunch of their MLE. The Blazers are just like in that camp of teams that didn't use that mid-level exception because it just wasn't that type of free agent crop this year. So as fun as it is to be like, Joe Cronin blew it, it's like, yeah, I don't know. He did. Maybe he did blow it, but he kind of followed a similar pattern to the rest of the league, right? Like I don't think it's uncommon compared to what other teams in the league did. So no, my gut is that there isn't a big trade coming. I mean, obviously, I think there could be that, August or usually September training camp move. But yeah, I would say this is probably the group, and the group is small, a little bit small.
Yeah, undersized for sure. A lot of log jams position wise, but so do you think that they're content going into the season with this group because they feel like it's a group that can win, or do you think that it's just as you mentioned a couple minutes ago, talent wins, and there is a lot of talented players on the roster. They don't necessarily mesh well. Is this a situation where it's like maybe there's more value to trade someone like Shaden or Scoot or Drew when we get to February, or is what's your theory on why this is the group that they're going to settle with?
Well, I kind of just don't get it. So I don't want to say like, here's why they're going to do it. Like I would say like the most honest opinion of this is I just don't totally get why this is the plan necessarily. I can't. It's kind of unbelievable to me that the Damian Lillard reunion year includes another point guard. I just cannot. Obviously, they needed another point guard on the roster, but like a big minute ball in your hand starter point guard. That's very surprising to me. So I don't want to like sit here and rationalize it and say like, here's why they did it. And I understand. However, here's why they did it. I think there is. I think it was just such, you get to the sort of off season and you start making calls and everybody's calling everybody in the league is kind of how it works. And then they kind of realize like we can get Ja Morant for very little and we're never going to be able to trade Jeremy Grant for a player of this caliber without attaching a draft pick at any point in the future. This is absolutely the maximum value you can get for Jeremy Grant, which kind of follows like maximum value for Anthony Simons. They didn't get draft picks. They didn't get young players. They didn't continue this sort of like pushing rebuild. They trade for a good 35-year-old on a giant contract in Drew Holiday. He helped them win games. Like they've kind of made some of these just like, let's get the best value type of bets. So that's my read, is that they think like this was a maximizing value and that they'll kind of figure it out. In his public comments to, I believe, The Athletic and The Oregonian, Mike Inori has kind of been like, oh no, actually having all these guards is a strength. So like when you hear them talk, I'm sure they'll say like, this was the plan and it's good, which is fine. They can say that. I think the proof will be in the pudding. But I think they realized, they needed more playmaking. They needed a little more offensive juice. And this was this was a deal that gave them the maximum version of that without, they still have a lot more trade ammo and with all their draft picks and stuff. So they can, I guess, figure it out. Although they haven't been necessarily a team that has been a figure it out and make a big trade in the season. So we'll see what their appetite is for that moving forward.
I was walking around in Portland the other day, and I overheard some Blazer fans talking, and they were actually very positive. They were talking about, oh, look at this team, that we have 3 All-Stars in the starting lineup, and so it's nice to, I did hear that positive take, and it was nice to hear that. But I do kind of tend to agree with you more, Mike. It doesn't. The roster construction as it is now just doesn't seem to make sense, and it feels like we've been here before. We've done the starting the 2 undersized guards who can't guard anyone thing before. So I don't know. It's interesting to see how it goes. But with that roster construction in mind, is there an odd man out that you see? Like, there's no way to play all of these guards, and you hear things like, "Oh, Shaden can play small forward." At least I've seen that online and things like that. But I don't know. Is there an odd man out when it comes to minutes on this roster?
There probably has to be eventually. I think you can, if you assume that Drew Holiday is mostly a 3 moving forward, and he can guard that position fine. He can guard small forwards fine. He's really strong and smart. Like, they put him on Wemby. Like, like he can guard up. He's much better guarding forwards than he is point guards at this stage in his career. So like you can have a trio off the bench that is like nominally Scoot at point guard, nominally Shaden Sharp at the 2, and Drew Holiday at the 3. You could probably play all 5, assuming that Ja and Dame start. I think you can get away with it. I think on a lot of nights you can get away in the regular season with being small. Quite frankly, they might be better than they were a season ago. It's just it's mostly the choices that they made, as opposed to, like, I don't think they got worse. I mean, they might have. It's hard to know. They might have. There's an argument to be made that, like, Jeremy Grant's size, and although he wasn't very good on defense and shooting, has some more additive value for the rest of your roster. But John Morant's better than him by a lot. So like it's a probably decent enough bet that they'll be better. I don't know that there's an odd man out. I just think you are forced to play a certain size, particularly off the bench, and it really puts how do the combos fit becomes really challenging for the coaching staff. What's the best when you're mix and matching? Let's call it 4 guards and Drew as a wing. When you're mix and matching 5 undersized players and 4 of them play guards and you only have 96 minutes, what are the best groupings? And can you get the best groupings out there when it matters? I think that's tricky. And who plays at the end of the game? Does Drew Holiday ever get to close? Is there a world where Drew Holiday's out there in the fourth quarter? Because that means probably one of Ja or Dame isn't out there. Is there, and that might get dicey, because I don't think you can take Tumani off the floor in crunch time because you need your guy to guard. I don't think you're going to take Denny off the floor at crunch time. I don't think you can play without a center. Maybe you can against some teams, but probably not a lot of them. So yeah, I think there's just a lot. It's not necessarily an odd man out. It's just so many questions about the best fit, and I guess they'll figure it out. That's the challenge for them is to figure out how it works. That's why you have the coaching staff.
So you're talking about closing. Do you think that's a more complicated situation than what the starting lineup's going to be? Because there's been reporting, obviously, that they want to go with Dame and Ja as starters, but defensively, that obviously puts them at quite a disadvantage. Or is it a situation where they start the game and then, one of them comes out for Drew in the first couple minutes or something like that? What do you envision in terms of what the starting lineup's going to look like?
I do think it's Dame and Ja. I don't think there's a world in which Damian Lamont Ollie Lillard Sr. comes off the bench. They didn't bring him back here in the manner in which they did to have him be some sort of 6-man. They brought him back here to be Dame. You guys have been around this team for a long time. Like, you think Damian Lillard envisions himself being anything other than Damian freaking Lillard? Like,
absolutely not.
Right. Like his superpower is confidence, right? It is the steadfast belief that he is going to overcome. It's what has made him special, right? He certainly isn't like, you're right, Drew Holiday's better than me. Hell no. He thinks he could win MVP. Like, and it is his superpower. So he's going to play. You don't trade for Ja Morant and turn him into a 6-man. He's clashed with both head coaches in Memphis over various things. It's like you bring him here and you're like, all right, bud, you'll be coming in at the 7-minute mark. Okay. Like, it's just the league is, egos matter in the NBA. Like, it's a small ship. It's 15 dudes. It's 12 players in the active list. It matters. I don't really care about the starting group as much as I care about the finishing group, though. Like, I think they're going to start those 2 guards and 2 and Denny and Donovan Clingan. Obviously, they'll have injuries throughout the year and blah 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 blah. Like, things will move around. I am fascinated by how they will close games. Who is on the court? Because I think you kind of have to go back to that group in some ways. But a lot of nights you might need different stuff. And is Nori bold enough to do that? And has a deft enough hand on the back end to explain to some maybe grumpy veterans why he had to do that?
Yeah, and we're looking at Dame obviously coming off a year removed from playing basketball and the injury and I've seen things a little bit online about, what his minutes are going to look like. And I can't envision him coming back and playing 38 minutes a night.
No.
He's going to be probably closer to 30, under 30, especially during the regular season. So has there been any talk about Dame's minutes, or have you heard anything about Dame's minutes or kind of what they will look like as the season starts?
I certainly haven't heard from anyone within the organization that makes those decisions. I've talked to some folks who are, I don't know, in the vicinity, but it's not, sure. I haven't asked Mike Nori that. And I bet he doesn't know, right? Like he's probably penciling it out right now, and he's saying, okay, a typical starter plays about 32 in the league. I know people like to say 35. 35 is a lot. If you look around the league, not many guys play 35 a night. So like 32 is about normal for a starter. A high-end bench guy plays 28. If you figure that everybody is in there, 30 is the right number to kind of guess for a guy who plays a lot, about 30 minutes. So, it's if you assume he plays 30 and Ja plays 30, and they're going to play the first, say, 6 minutes and the final 6 minutes together, it is figuring out what the other 18 minutes a night look like for each of those gentlemen when they are not sharing the court with the other one. I think that's the magic, because Ja Morant can probably lead a pretty darn good offense. I bet Damian Lillard can too. Danny Avdija is pretty good as well. How does it all work? But I think the minutes in some ways, they're kind of baked in, and it's more the combos, right? You kind of know. I guess there is some real question about how much Scoot and Shaedon play, but you would assume they play a fair amount, 26 plus minutes a night. I guess the Blazers have always kind of given Scoot less opportunity than I think they will. So, so maybe he plays less.
You brought up Mike Nori, so let's get into that a little bit. What do you think is there going to be a big shift in philosophy? Because he's kind of obviously thought of as more of an offensive mind when it comes to coaching. They have some good defensive tools with Tamani and Donovan. How do you see kind of the shift from Chauncey's regime? Obviously, he wasn't the coach last year, but it was still kind of, a lot of the things that he had kind of built up during his tenure. So how do you see the shift, with Mike Nora coming in with this particular roster?
How do they put a good defensive group on the court? What's their bet? Each of the last 2 years, when their defense has been the best, what they've done is Shaedon Sharpe has either been injured or moved out of the starting lineup, and they've gone pretty big. Last year, it worked pretty well with having Scoot and Drew Holiday in there, but often it was going bigger, right? It was playing big wings and multiple big wings. How do they do that now? They don't have first of all, they don't have any forwards. I mean, no disrespect to Sidi Sissoko, but he's the only guy off the bench who's forward sized, and he's like a fringy rotation player. He plays really hard. I enjoy his stees, but he's not very good. And maybe he'll get a lot better. He's young, but I don't think he's going to be sort of tasked to be all right, we're going to play our defensive group, get in there. I mean, he would be the guy you lean on, right? But they're going to play City ahead of Scoot and Ja and all these guys. So I think they're going to have to be a team that plays fast. Ja can be a transition player. You got to maximize your talent. That's the art of coaching. You fit your plan fits the talent. You don't have a plan and then fit the talent to that. You go the other way. So they're going to have to run. They're going to have to play fast. It's not really what Dame has ever wanted to do. I can't imagine that's what he wants to do at 36 coming off an Achilles injury, because he didn't want to do it at 23 when he was really athletic, or at least certainly in a different athletic space than he is now. They're going to have to play fast, and they're going to be a team that has to win with being a good offensive team. That's where their strength is going to be. And I guess the question that we'll be looking at all year, I'm certainly you guys here and myself as well, is like, how good do they need to be on offense to be competitive? Is this a top 10 team? Is this can they get by as an average offense? Do they have to be one of the 5 best offenses in the league to win? Like, how good do they have to be on that end? Because that's just the group they have. Those are the gentlemen they are currently employing.
Speaking of big wings, were you surprised that the Blazers were not interested in Jaylen Brown, especially after seeing what Jaylen Brown went for, being traded for Paul George, 2 firsts and 2 seconds, which I think it's pretty common knowledge, at least among Blazer fans, that the Blazers could have offered a better deal than that to Boston. Were you surprised that they weren't even interested in Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, I think, not to be rail against the modern internet, but I do think the aggregation around the Blazers' lack of interest misses the quote a little bit. Okay. It's basically like, I might have it here in my notes. I don't have it quickly, but it is. They probably view him as a negative player in terms of like, he's a high volume scorer that even last year when he was like, in the MVP chase and one of probably the 10 best players in the league, was not a hyper efficient scorer. He's not a great passer. He's a good player, but I think the sort of like relatively inefficient, he's not a great shooter off the ball, the relatively inefficient ball in your hands scorer, who also commands a massive package on the trade market. And that was part of it. At the Celtics asking price, the Blazers never got interested. I think that is the big thing that hasn't necessarily been reported well, is it wasn't just that they put him into the supercomputer and it was like, Jaylen Brown bad, and I'm certainly that's part of it, right? But it was that, hey, you also need to give up all these valuable draft picks in order to get him. It's like, no thanks. Like, if the price changes, let's talk later. And then the Celtics did something extremely bizarre and decided to trade him on July 1st. Y'all think you could have called the Sixers, say like September 1st, and been like, hey, would you like to trade Paul George for Jaylen Brown? Yeah. They probably would have still jumped at it then. So I don't know. Like, yeah, I think in general, I thought that would be a move, particularly post Giannis, but I don't know. They value getting, the Ja trade is such a value win that maybe they saw that as like a better fallback. I don't want to say that I like get it or support it, but I think I can at least walk the logic along with the Blazers. Like, I kind of get where they landed, even if it's not necessarily what I think is like the right move. I don't need to co-sign it to understand how they got there, I guess.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you, because like the further we've gotten away from it, like it sits a little better with me now than it did when it initially. Like, I'll be honest, like when it first happened, I did not like it. For various reasons, off the court, on the court. I think I've come back to the space where the off the court stuff, I think, is probably not bothering me as much, because I think having guys like Drew and Dame and just a change of scenery is probably a good thing for him at this point in his career, and he still is a talented player. And as you mentioned, they got him for basically nothing. They were going to move Jeremy Grant anyways, so to get that caliber of player back. The only thing I do wonder is, like, the one thing that still kind of sticks with me is Shaedon and Scoot, and I'll say Scoot in particular. Do you think this kind of like hinders his development, like, or his path to kind of become, because we saw like some breakout games in the postseason, late in the season. Do you think this like kind of puts a damper on the trajectory of where he was developing, or the player that he's developing into?
Certainly isn't a bold endorsement of what they believe Scoot Henderson can be, right? Like, if they thought Scoot was like ready to be a guy, you just don't make this trade.
Yeah.
Like, you don't do it. If you really, I asked something similar to Joe Cronin last year. Said, if you think, he said something like, we understand our spaces or our trajectory is like having the young guys get better. I said, okay, well, how can you square that logic with adding two 35-year-old point guards? Like what's going on? Like, what are we doing? And he said, like, we've always believed kind of perhaps that we want to make sure guys earn it and play the right way. And he used the phrase guardrails, put a little guardrails on their development. So like if they are playing poorly, there's other options, right? This is beyond a guardrail, right? Like this is, I don't know the analogy for it necessarily, but like there isn't a path as I see it right now, when the team is fully healthy, for Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe to play 30 minutes a night. Those are your first two draft picks of the Joe Cronin era. It's fine if they're not good. That's fine. It's fine to admit you made mistakes. It's hard to get the draft right. These are all it is what it is, right? Like that's an acceptable team building reality. Is noteworthy that they decided now was the time to go get another point guard and not clear that space for Scoot. I think that is a notable thing. He might end up playing a bunch when guys get injured, right? He might end up pretty good, but there has not been a path pretty much since Scoot's the first 10 games of Scoot's career when he was horrendous, that they have kind of cleared the decks for him to go out there and do what he does. They have always had somebody in front of him one way or another, and now they've got several somebodies in front of him. This is just how they have operated. Whether it is a belief in Scoot or a team building philosophy, I don't understand. It has been abundantly true.
Looking at the Ja deal and looking at just what kind of Tom Dundon has done with the Carolina Hurricanes, I've heard this term so much more than I've ever heard it before. Distressed asset. I think I'm saying that right. And it just seems like is this? I guess my question for you, Mike, is this now the path that we're going to see for the Blazers? You're talking about Jaylen Brown wasn't worth the price for the Blazers. Obviously, Ja becomes worth the price for them when he was available for so cheap. And this is kind of what he did with the Hurricanes, right? He brought on a lot of players that were also distressed athletes there too. So, is this, as Blazer fans, is this what Blazer fans should be ready for in the future? Bringing on more distressed assets like Ja Morant.
I wouldn't be surprised because there's a market inefficiency in trading for talent that is not valued other places. But I would note that it's not like the rest of the league valued Jaylen Brown, right? I would say the Blazers are not unique in saying I don't want to pay that. It's pretty clear that maybe not. It's pretty clear they trade him on July 1st. They don't know what they're doing. It's like an incredibly well-run franchise and well-respected franchise, and they did something I'll never get. They traded Jaylen Brown this year, the second best player on their team, 60 days before they should have, without any provocation. In any case, yeah, I think there is I think it's clear that Tom Dundon values the sort of finding the market inefficiencies, finding the places to where you can, it's not cut corners necessarily, but it is make deals where you aren't paying a premium at any point. And I think that's kind of how he's approached the Micah Nori thing with the contract, which is, might end up not mattering at all, but it is like a very, very much we are refusing to pay a premium, and this is how the job works. And with the Ja thing, it's just maybe they are this value driven franchise. Maybe that is always how it's going to be. I don't think necessarily that approach is a negative on its face. I think it could end up being incredibly valuable, right? It's not the philosophy that's a problem; it's the execution. Move number one seems a bit bizarre, but I will wait. I don't know for moves 2 through 7 to be more critical. But I again, the philosophy on its face is, I think generally fine.
So you've covered the team a long time, so I want to ask kind of, not necessarily a personal question, but just in terms of your job, you've been around the team so long. Do you think this is more fun? Because obviously, as fans, the rebuilding and all that stuff, it becomes really hard to tolerate when the team is intentionally bad. But you're kind of like building those assets and kind of looking towards the future. But is it more fun for you as a beat reporter to be in this situation where there's a little bit of like, obviously they made the playoffs last year. They were a pretty good basketball team. They seem like they probably are going to be a pretty good basketball team this year, but they're making some interesting, moves that kind of, there's a little bit of an unknown there. So do you, as a beat reporter, do you find this more fun, or would you rather be in that space where there's, kind of looking towards the future even more, as opposed to like having this weird roster with a bunch of talented players on it?
Kliss, there's nothing worse than covering a basketball game that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Except for covering 38 of them in a row. That is so, there were so many of those during the stretch where it's just like, they don't want to win. Everyone knows it. It permeates to the players pretty quickly that the team, it's like they're competitive people, but like that when they lose, the team is happy, or at least like, mission accomplished. They're not interested in winning type of thing. That permeates to the locker room pretty quickly. You feel it in there. That's real. The stink gets on everybody. It's like, hey, we're doing something that is not trying to win basketball games. And it's a pretty competitive league for the most part. It gets there quickly. It also gets out of you quickly because you can flush it and say, okay, now we're trying to win. I don't think it sticks around. I don't believe in that losing culture phrase that people kicked around. Because when the Blazers tried to win some games, they did it pretty quickly. But yeah, certainly a competitive team is more fun to cover. I don't think, I think there's this sort of thing with media members where they pretend that like, oh, I'm so neutral that I don't care about the results. But anyone who says that is lying to you if they've ever been in a game. Yeah. After they win, it is easier to go into the locker room and write a story. Those are easier nights to work. There's no doubt about it. Those are easier games. You guys been in there. It's like, hey, everyone's in a good mood, as opposed to going in there when, it's one thing if they get blown out. It's another thing if they lose a bunch of games in a row and that's the plan. So yeah, way, way better to be covering a competitive team. And like, just for me and what I do, incredible summer of content. The Tom Dundon just sort of nonsense and the sort of the coaching search, and I was like, they didn't have a draft pick, and it's been moving right along through April, May, and June. So I this particular like stretch has been pretty easy for what I do. So I'm not complaining, and going to games when they matter and they're playing to win is just way better.
So next up on this beautiful summer of Blazers content, we have the Summer League. So what should Blazer fans be looking for in this Summer League? I know there's at least one main point of attention here, but as a Blazer fan, what should you be watching this for in Summer League?
That's right, Chris Youngblood. Yeah, it is interesting because it's all about young Hansen, right? Like this is the summer of Hansen to get right. I don't know. What do they look for? It's so hard in Summer League because it's a really physical and high effort environment. Like it is, everybody goes hard. It's a little bit ratty. Like it's not the most beautiful basketball, but everybody plays really hard. So I do think it is in some ways a good environment to kind of judge that. But Hansen is like, his path probably in the future is to probably play next to a really high level pick and roll operator to get the best out of him. But I think what you want to see are, for him specifically, is like, does his process look a little bit better? Like, does he set a screen, make good contact, roll, post, make quick decisions, right? Even if he bricks a bunch of shots, it's that process stuff. Like Summer League is so much about like how you do things, not what you do. So it's like, is he shooting a bunch of threes? Is he taking mid-range jumpers? Is he able to get to the rim? Are they hunting switches on pick and rolls to get him against little guys? It's like, it's such a process-based thing. Like you probably shouldn't even look at the box score. Like, like you probably should ignore the counting stats like almost entirely because they're mostly meaningless. It is so much about process. So for me, it'll be like, watching closely how Hansen operates, but also like watching his teammates and how much they either limit or help him do things, because that's a reality for him. Like, he was pretty far away last year, and I don't see him playing much this season, particularly early on. I don't see him playing at all. But in Summer League, it was like he had these moments where it was like, he's really skilled. He's got some stuff, but also like he couldn't get a post up against Armando Bacot. And it was incredibly obvious that he just, like, the strength and the ability to clear space in the post was going to be a problem. How was he going to score was something I said on the podcast last July. I like the way he's playing. He's got some skills. I don't know how he's going to score in the pros. And then we got to the NBA, and it's like, he's not. That's how. Like, it's and so it is, so much of it. And I don't know how, if you guys are like big Summer League watchers. I'm sure you are, just because of based on the podcast. But like, it is such a process. It is such a challenge in understanding the process, as opposed to is like he had 19 and 12. It's like, okay, how do you do it?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think I just have one more question, and I want to go back to Ja, just because, that's going to be a big storyline going into the season once we actually get to September, October. Do you think that he can actually, like, tap into, obviously, like, when he came onto the scene in Memphis, like, he was literally one of the, like, he took the league by storm. He was like, kind of the up and coming possible face of the NBA. That's how good he was. And, he's had not only the off the court stuff, but some injury problems. Do you think this change of scenery, playing with guys that are more ball dominant like him, like, with Dame and Denny, do you think he can tap into being that kind of player again when he's playing with guys like that? Or do you think this is just kind of like, he's just going to kind of have to pick his moments? Or do you think he can actually be that kind of player that we saw again in Memphis when he first came up?
Yeah, I don't know if he's if he can get back to the 22 years old, most exciting player in the NBA type of production. He was must see television for a stretch like that. That year that they won 56 games, the Grizzlies were probably the most fun team in the league, right? There was like that. You had to watch them. They were that good, and Ja was so spectacular. And like, I don't know that he has the sort of all NBA ceiling still, because I think a little bit of his athleticism has just kind of sapped away, the way that sort of naturally your running, jumping athleticism changes a little bit as you age from 22 to 27, but your strength balance stuff like athleticism improves a lot. Like, you get to your sort of physical peak, but maybe, I've talked to NBA guys about this a bunch, is that I don't leap like I did in college, but I'm like stronger and smarter and faster in terms of like, the way I can operate in terms of athleticism. So they're different, we don't usually think of balance or whatever as athleticism. So I think he can still be a pretty darn good offensive player. I don't know if that peak is there. I remain a bit confused about how the whole process and fit works, but I think it's fair to say I don't get it in July, and when they start playing games, I'll do my best to get it, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm okay. I'm okay being confused now to try to be less confused in the future. I'm comfortable with that in the way that maybe not everyone loves. I don't know, but I don't know. So I don't think the sort of every night super highlight Ja is going to emerge, but I do think there's probably a pretty darn good offensive player in there, and then the Blazers, if they can figure it out, can probably tap into a high level playmaker, downhill driver, creator. He's got a great floater game. He had a bunch of awesome, even last year when he didn't play very much, he had a bunch of awesome layup packages, like highlights, where he's just like, still the touch and the creativity. And it's like, you're talking about being in the top 0.5% of athletes in the league to the top 2% of athletes in the league. It's kind of the nature. It's like, you sap your superpowers a little bit, but I still think we're going to have some moments where we really appreciate how skilled Ja Morant is often.
What are you more concerned about? The shooting on this team, as one of the worst shooting teams in the NBA adds Ja Morant, who is notoriously not a good shooter and in fact has gotten worse over his career, or the defense of this team as they have two small guards, or is there some other thing that you're even more worried about? But what's the bigger concern here?
I'm probably a little more concerned about the defense. The shooting, I think, like, you had Damian Lillard. He's pretty good at. He's notoriously, or a
right.
decent enough shooter. I think that'll help. I think Denny Avdia was shooting fine and then got hurt. Is that all injury stuff? Is that just natural shooting slump? Right? Like, where does he land? Toumani Camara is a good shooter who is incredibly streaky. If you can kind of, instead of being a 37% shooter that shoots 20% and then 45%, if you could just be a guy who makes slightly above league average on 8 attempts a game, like, you've got a shooter there. Maybe he doesn't ever get there, but that's something. So I'm a little bit less concerned about the shooting. I think they'll still be bad, to be clear. but I just, like I said, early in the show, I was like, I'm not sure how you put out, like, what's their best defensive lineup? Like, how do they put out a group that best defensive lineup? It's probably like, in terms of, like, realistically would get on the court. I guess it's probably like Scoot, Drew, Denny, Rob. That's probably their best defensive group. You could argue that you want Klingon in there. I don't care, but whatever center. But that's probably their best defensive group. How often in the competitive run of play does Scoot, Drew, Denny, get out there with the center? Like, can't be a ton. No. Maybe a little bit, but it can't be a ton, right? Because I just don't think I don't think if they're healthy that is a likely common group. And so if you can't lean on your best defensive group with regularity, how do you put out good defensive lineups? Like, I think that's a bigger concern for me.
Gliss, any more questions for Mike Richman here?
No, I'm good. I just appreciate him taking the time to come on and.
Can I ask you all a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, I am, I'm really curious about this team. I think my maybe affect comes off that I'm, like, so pessimistic and I think they're going to suck, because I like him. I kind of wade in the waters, right? Of, like, there are some things that I do have general concerns, but are you guys, like, in July, are you excited? Do you feel excited about this team, or do you feel like, where are you, I guess, on the excited scale? Like, point to it on, like, if you had the doctored chart with, like, the smiley faces, where are you?
Alex?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think I'm excited because there's an excitement of, like, oh, I don't know how this is going to work. Let's just go ahead and see how it is. Yeah. And, like, those guys I heard talking the other day, they've never had a team that, at least that has 3 all-stars in the starting lineup before. So I am excited to see how that works, and I'm excited to watch Ja play because I really do like a comeback story, and I like. And when I'm envisioning it in my mind and thinking about, okay, what would be, like, the perfect best case scenario, and Ja just comes back with a vengeance and is just like returned to form, and it's just like the change of scenery really does it for him, and he gels with everyone, and he's just like this guy who's not doing the grenade celebration anymore, and is just like, so I'm excited for that vision of it, where, like, if you're going to just be full optimist and you're envisioning how this could go perfectly, and Dame, comes back and is great and hasn't missed a step. And we've seen a lot of these older players in the league now still, be in great shape, great form as they're getting older. So if you're looking at, like, Steph or LeBron and things like that, you can envision where Dame can still be the Dame of old. So, I'm excited because we don't know. And of course, if you're an NBA fan and you're not excited, before the season, then why are you an NBA fan? Like, this is the only time you can pretty much be excited and be the 100% optimist. So,
agreed. Charge up your optimism batteries in the summer. Like, save the dread for the fall, but, like, charge them up now, because there is a world, I think, where they're pretty darn fun. Like, I think there's a world where they play incredibly fast and they're fun, and you get to watch Damian Lillard and Ja Morant run your favorite basketball team. Like, I think there's a world where they're pretty entertaining. Sorry, Gliss, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I'm always cautiously optimistic as a fan. So, like, My worry about this move has settled, as I said earlier, just because I think they got him for so cheap. It's kind of like, okay, well, what did they actually give away? Like, they didn't really give away much of anything. I know Alex always said that Chris Murray was my boy, but that's not actually true. I don't feel like they lost a lot in the deal. So to get a player of that caliber at that, cheap of a price, yeah, like it's starting to settle in with me that that's not necessarily a bad move. It's a confusing move because of the other talent that they have on the roster. But to Alex's point, it's hard not to feel optimism when you're going into a new season and you got a clean slate. And yeah, they have a lot of talented players. I mean, I'm probably most excited to see Dame step back onto the court in a Blazer uniform. Like, I think that's obviously going to be a moment that, a lot of Blazers fans are looking forward to more than anything. And, like you said, they have a lot of pieces that could make this a very exciting team. Yes, there's worries defensively, shooting, and all those things, but I'm kind of with you, Mike. I don't know either, so I'm just kind of waiting to see how this works out. And if it falls apart early in the season, then they still have all these draft picks and they still have some young assets, and they can kind of reshift. So I don't think like this trade is a disaster because they got a much better player than the two guys that they gave up. And while it doesn't necessarily seem to fit, I think it clearly improves like the talent on the roster.
Yeah, some of the unknowns make it fun. Like, I think there is a little bit of my sort of natural way that I operate is to say, oh, I don't get it. But I think not getting it kind of makes it fun. It's like, how the heck is this going to work can be also like really enjoyable because it's, they're figuring out the puzzle. It's kind of the fun part of basketball is like how the pieces all fit. And not knowing in July is and being a team overperforming your expectations is about as enjoyable a fan experience as you could have. So, I think there are reasons right now, even with a wonky group, to be like, heck yeah, I can't wait till they get out on the court. So I want to be, while my own personal brand is a little bit of hateration. I do like totally recognize that there is, a wide range of reasons for optimism, or at least like positive curiosity is maybe the way I'll say it.
Like the generations before me, I saved the dread, I saved the negativity for when I'm actually watching the basketball. And while I'm not watching it, I'm 100% all in and excited to see what can happen. But I have one last question for you, Mike. And you call yourself the pass first point guard. Can I hear more about this? Are you still playing pickup? Was that kind of the way that you played pickup? Like, describe to me how you were playing.
Oh yeah, well, I've been about the same size since I was in the 7th grade. So I was a pretty big 7th grader, and now I am a short adult. I was pretty big 7th grader. I was pretty short 10th grader. I didn't get there with the rest of my peers, I guess. So, well, I was once a youth basketball power forward. I've become a pass first point guard for sure. I do play pickup regularly. I play in a weekly game with some friends and have for about a decade with that group. And I absolutely am. Sometimes they'll joke with me if I like take a shot or a no pass pull up jumper or something. They'll be like, "I thought you passed." But I think anyone who's played with me regularly knows that pass first point guard is not only a moniker but a lifestyle. I do for sure play that way. And I'm not a very good basketball player, but I do love I love pickup. I love getting out there and playing. And it's still a big part of my life.
But if you got the open three, you can knock it down.
Oh, I could attempt it, no problem, Alex. I'll get it up.
No problem. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mike. We really appreciate all the insight, and it's just great to chat with you. And I think Gliss and I are both inspired by your show, and I've really loved listening to it over the years, and honestly, it's part of the inspiration of why we started this show this season. So thank you so much for joining us, and please let everyone know where to follow you and where to listen to your show.
Alex, that's really kind. I appreciate it. It means a lot to have folks listen. It is really. It's something that I do it so often and every day that to know that it is meaningful to people is what allows me to get up and do it every day, because that's kind of part of it. So I sincerely appreciate it. Locked On Blazers is a daily podcast coming at you every weekday. It's available where all the places you get podcasts. Wherever you're listening to this, you can also find Locked On Blazers. It is. I do about 220 episodes a year, roughly. We're 5 days a week all through July. Take a little break in August, and then we get back after it in September. So if you are just finding me via the algorithm or via your love for Wake Up Rip City, come check out the show and see if you can tolerate me in small doses every day of the week. I would sincerely appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mike. This has been Wake Up Rip City. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the video. We really appreciate everyone listening, and we'll be back next week.